From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Morning Line with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. Nick Barris with you on a Wednesday. I do appreciate you being here. How is your day going? Mine's going pretty good so far. It's about to get better as we kick into another great Morning Line program. We'll open up the phone lines if you'd like to join in the conversation in just a moment here as we continue to kind of, take a look at what's happening, with the focus here in the city of Nashville, but also much of the issue we're discussing here is there are issues that cities across the state are dealing with. Certainly with COVID. Okay, certainly with some of what we've seen during the recent special session of the legislature, what has been passed, not yet signed by the governor or not yet addressed by the governor. At some point, we'll know probably later this week what's going to happen on that front with regard to masks, mask mandates, things like that moving forward. Who really can handle what the district attorney does? All those debates we've kind of talked about in the last week or so. We had Speaker Sexton on with us. We had District Attorney Glenn Funk on. We've had council members on. This morning, we're going to have 2 Metro School board members on. Yes, does that mean we saved the best for last? Yeah, Gina Pupo-Walker, Christiane, both with the Metro School Board. You're a chairperson, are you not?
I am.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for the invitation.
What do you guys think, huh? No, I mean, come on. What do you you're wondering what is Nick going to ask us about all these things going on? Now, have you paid attention? Did you pay attention at all to what was happening at the special session?
I'll start. So yes, so we not only paid attention, we were often in the building, but we had to split time between that and town halls that the Department of Education was hosting around the BEP funding. So we've got to be stretched as thin as possible to make sure that we're making courageous, thoughtful, well-informed decisions for our students. So yes, we paid attention very closely.
Remind folks so they understand BEP funding and how important it is.
Sure. So the BEP funding is an algorithm. It's a formula that's used to decide just how much funding goes to every single student, every single school, every single district. We have, 145 districts around the city, around the state, 95 counties, and it's been just severely underfunded for decades. It doesn't account for issues that our students have at home or in their communities.
You're talking about state money.
Just under-resourcing, yes, state funding.
Right, okay, and we're going to get back to that type of funding and what this all means as you paid attention to it. Now, I think you both said as we sat down before this, you're really not going to issue a real strong opinion one way or the other until we ultimately know whether or not what the legislature passed becomes law. It hasn't officially yet. There's still bills until it clears the governor's desk. Now, I think we'd all agree that if the governor was really gung-ho about everything that was passed by the legislature, why wouldn't he have just signed it by now, right? Just common sense, folks. So maybe there's some things he doesn't like about it. Maybe there are things he does like. Maybe he's just been procrastinating. More likely, he's just going to let it go, not sign it, but not veto it, and it'll become law, which he has the option. He doesn't have to sign it, doesn't have to veto it, but he'll leave his name off it and pass it on. It's probably what's going to happen. But at this point, you don't really want to say one way or the other where you stand, even though I think we both know it's going to become law.
Well, we have seen already lawsuits across the state against his executive order. So we kind of are waiting to see how that plays out. And then, of course, I think Shelby County for sure and Metro Schools were considering what are the options, what's in front of us, what's required, what's not required. Obviously, of course, we would love to have children be mask-free and to move forward with our lives in this pandemic. At the same time, and luckily, we now have vaccines for children 5 to 11 years old, which is a huge step forward. So all of these incremental changes are really important for us. But at the same time, we have a tremendous responsibility to protect the health of our students and make sure that they can be in school learning in person. And so it's a huge balancing act for us.
Yeah, it sure is. Now, you mentioned Shelby County. We have Davidson County. They are one of, maybe 6 municipalities across the state that were given the exception, didn't have to follow the governor's mandate on requiring masks or whatever. The individual health departments could decide for themselves. And here in Davidson County, right, there are mask mandates in place for kids, correct?
In schools.
Yeah, in schools, unless there's a special circumstance for a child along those lines. But now, under what's passed anyway, the thinking is that that exemption will go away and it would have to abide by. As it stands now and the way things are happening in schools, as you've heard from teachers, what you've observed, how safe are things right now with the way it's being done in Davidson County with regard to COVID and kids? How safe do you think it is?
Well, so first, I would say that we would prefer to accept guidance from the state. We would prefer our students be in school maskless. We would prefer that we never have to return to virtual learning. But this year has, the past, 3 school years have been unprecedented. And so we've had to take guidance from healthcare officials. We've had to... The
local ones.
Local healthcare officials who knew exactly what was happening on the ground, who understood the dynamics of our urban city. And so I think it kind of changes. We're hoping that we can make it through the Thanksgiving holiday, because that was when we saw a spike last year. We're hoping not to see that, and I can't say that we are, I mean, I have a 3-year-old, so I can't say that we are completely out of the woods yet, or that we're completely safe, but I know that I still put that mask on my 3-year-old every day in hopes that I'm doing what's right for him, his peers, and all of their families.
Right.
But the truth is the numbers are going down.
Okay, good.
When we were one of the only districts in the state to require masks, we had some of the lowest transmission rates in the state. And so I think that's a testament to our staff and our students being cautious and observing sort of that regulation. And as a result, we've seen week upon week our numbers going down.
Yeah, and we've seen, some students get sick. The other thing that breaks my heart, and I don't know about in Metro, but there have been cases of teachers gotten sick and died.
We've had staff die.
Okay, yeah, okay. I guess that's. I know that's been reported. I wasn't sure exactly in Davidson. So yeah, staff who were there teaching, and for whatever reason, it got exposed and died.
We've had bus drivers die. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I mean, clearly things are getting better, but it still is a big danger. I guess Metro Health Department would continue to monitor all this, but right now there's still, are some contradictions out there. Have you had cases, have you heard from schools where there have been parents that say, look, the governor says I don't have to, I don't want my child to have to wear a mask, and they send the child to school without a mask, okay? And maybe the child's turned away, or they're allowed. How is that being handled?
I mean, it's rare. Mostly folks are really conforming, and I think part of it is that last year was so tremendously hard with kids at home that they're just happy to have them in school. We're going to comply, we're going to go along, and we want our kids safe. But we have had parents that have walked in and said, my child's not wearing a mask. And staff and principals have been coached on how to just basically pull them into a side room. Let's have a conversation. Let's work on this together. And it's resolved together. And students, unless they have a medical exemption, they're wearing masks.
Okay. Now, do you fear, again, that could change in terms of that discussion? There isn't one if they just say, look, you no longer have authority to make this decision here, and the new laws. I'm just wondering, moving forward.
That's a possibility, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right? And so when that comes, I guess the question is then what? And I know the council has asked for the mayor's office to have Metro Legal look for gray areas and all of this type of thing to see what you will do. Again, all you can say is we're going to wait and see. But one of the possibilities is that you just keep going as business as usual and see what happens.
For now. That's the plan.
And Speaker Sexton, who was on, says, there may be gray areas, but we're going to be back in session here soon, and if there are, we'll address those. I said, well, what kind of authority? I mean, if they just ignore it, what are you going to do? And he said, well, we can take away BP money.
And that's so unfortunate, because our goal is not to be in opposition to the state, to the legislature, to the Department of Education, or to anyone for that matter. Our goal is to make sure that students are learning to read, write, and do arithmetic appropriately. Our goal is to make sure that students are in safe, healthy, loving classrooms with teachers who love them and want to do what's best for them. And I feel like all of these are just distractions. We are having to manage the health and safety of students, teachers, families every single day. And so the idea that this is being held over our heads, that these threats are being made, is more unfortunate than anything. I mean, we're trying to make courageous decisions, and if we have to decide between the health and safety of people and funding, it's unfortunate, but we'll make tough decisions if we need to. But we don't. That's not the goal. That's not what we're striving for.
Yeah, certainly not. I mean, you want to make sure everyone stays safe, but ultimately the safety of the children comes number one, followed very closely, would you say, then by educating them?
For sure. I mean,
Number one, safety.
You cannot educate a dead child, just like you can't educate a sick child or you can't educate a hungry child. We've got to make sure that we've wrapped our arms around that child completely when they come into our classrooms. And the idea that you would punish students for us trying to keep them safe, I mean, and we talk about students, but we've got to make sure that we're thinking about the adults also, because we're thinking about the families they go home to. In an urban district where several thousands of students are going home to multi-generational families, where they have a grandparent, a great uncle or aunt that's living in the home with them, we've got to be mindful of their health. We've got to be mindful of the health of our teachers, of our bus drivers who we've already lost. I mean, I'm so very frustrated sometimes that you would punish students. You would take funding from an already underserved population to make a point, to wag your finger at us, to smack us on the hand. Why? Work with us. Have conversations with us. See what areas we can compromise around. Understand our thinking, and then feel free to offer your insights. But it's been kind of a stonewall. You know, we don't have consistent conversation between us and these different state agencies, and I would love for that to be the case.
Well said. Listen, we'll take a break. When we come back, we may take a few phone calls if you'd like to weigh in on this. If not, plenty more ground to cover with regard to what's happening with our students, schools, COVID. Moving forward, we'll talk more with our fine guests right after this. Stay with us.